Well, as U.S. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump claims victory as he takes the lead against Kamala Harris, let's take a look at reactions from global leaders.
That's right, Eric. Congratulating Donald Trump, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that as Trump builds on the successes of his previous term, he looks forward to renewing collaboration to further strengthen the India-United States comprehensive global and strategic partnership.
Congratulating Trump, President of Hungary Viktor Orban said this is the biggest comeback in U.S. political history.
And reacting to the elections in the United States, China says it hopes for peaceful coexistence, mutual respect and win-win cooperation with the United States.
Former Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison congratulated Trump, saying that he will have a very positive impact on global security issues.
And South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol congratulated Donald Trump, saying that he hoped the security allies could work more closely in the future.
Turkey's President Erdogan congratulated Trump, saying that he hopes Turkey-US relations will strengthen and that regional and global crises and wars, especially the Palestinian issue and the Russian-Ukraine war, will come to an end. Remember, these are some of the reactions from some of the leaders after Donald Trump did deliver his victory speech.
So the latest results that we have got, the numbers stand at 277 to 224. These are the latest numbers that we have. The election results still have to be called out, Eric. We are awaiting that until Donald Trump is formally declared victorious of the 2024 presidential elections. And
Wisconsin was the latest state to declare its results. Remember, there are 3 states which remain. They're about to declare their results, and then we'll know who the winner, or formally who the winner of this 2024 election is declared. And Donald Trump did do that. He declared himself the winner of the elections. We are yet to hear from the Democrat presidential candidate Kamala Harris, who is set to give a speech in a few hours.
That's right. In fact, Eric, joining us now on the broadcast to give us a better perspective of how world leaders are reacting to this particular result, Dr. Gilbert Doctorow, International Affairs Analyst. He joins us from St. Petersburg in Russia. Doctor, what we've last heard is Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, does not plan to congratulate Donald Trump. Your first reaction, and of course your reactions to this victory as well.
Well, as you've said, I am speaking to you from St. Petersburg, Russia. That is not my normal working place. I am based in Brussels, Belgium. However, by a curious coincidence, in November of 2016, I was in Moscow. That is, I was there for the time of Donald Trump's first electoral victory as president. And I was invited to speak on RT in a program by Peter Lavelle called Crosstalk, and we were opening the champagne. Everyone was extremely enthusiastic, and of course Mr. Putin was then one of the first world leaders to congratulate Donald Trump on his victory. What I see now is that it was not planned that I would be here during the election, but it's happened so, and it's a very different Russia that I find today, just as it's a very different America that Mr. Trump has won in. To be precise, as you have said, the Russian leader has not congratulated Mr. Trump, and the mood here is not celebratory because they know very well that Trump's first term in office, instead of improving relations with the United States, between Russia and the United States, only made them worse. But no, things are very different in the United States, in Russia, and in the world at large from 2016. To be precise, Mr. Trump's victory this time comes with a majority position in the Senate, and that is of decisive importance in what his presidency can be about. He had no chances of getting competent people to his side through the U.S. Senate in his first presidency. That was a great handicap he worked with people who could get through the Senate approval process, but would work against him and against all of his policies, which is what happened then. The Russian president, Mr. Putin, more than a month ago said that his preference for the elections was Kamala Harris. And he was not saying that as a joke. He was saying it in all due seriousness, because the Russians were quite skeptical of Mr. Trump back in 2016, and with good reason, though they suppressed their doubts then. Today they say that he is a loose cannon on the deck, his policies are unpredictable, and they were in favor of Harris because they assumed, with good reason, that her presidency would lead the United States to further degrade, to further lose its competitive advantages because of the social disruption of a radical leftist president, which is what Kamala Harris likely would have been had she won the presidency.
Let me
the situation today is similar to 2016, only in the outcome, but not in what that outcome will lead to. The presidency of Mr. Trump takes place against a different world background.
I'm sorry to interject you, but let me come in here and ask you this, because we are receiving various, congratulatory messages from world leaders, and Russia, or the Kremlin, says that U.S. ties is at a low, but Russia is open to dialogue after Trump declares victory. We also had the Russian Foreign Ministry saying that U.S. should cure its own democracy and not blame others. This is right after Trump made his victory speech, and he did mention democracy. He did mention that he's going to work on building the freedoms of the United States and also unifying the United States. Do you really think he's going to work with Russia towards that?
Well, of course he will work with Russia, but not on the terms that he was setting forth in his electoral campaign. He presented himself as the honest broker who would knock heads together between Mr. Putin and Mr. Zelensky and solve the war in a day. The Russians viewed that as nonsense, and they do today. They will, the message coming from Mr. Peskov, the press secretary of Vladimir Putin, is we were waiting for your actions and not your words. The notion that Mr. Trump can resolve the war in Ukraine is accepted here, but not in a public way. It is accepted in the sense that if Mr. Trump stops the financing of Kiev, stops sending armaments to Kiev, then in 2 weeks the war will end. It will end with a capitulation of Kiev to Russian terms. And that will be the end of the war. And that is a likely outcome. If Mr. Trump were to make the serious mistake of trying to be a broker and to get himself involved in the peace process between Russia and Ukraine, he will be paying heavy political capital for negligible gains.
Right.
If he is smart, and I think he has smart advisors by his side this time, like Elon Musk, he will stand back and solve the problem in the way I just suggested, by stopping the financing and the arms to Kiev. That will solve the problem. That will bring peace.
Dr. Gilbert, in the lead up to the US elections, and even today we've been discussing if this then what, we have spoken of how the rest of the world will how the current or the upcoming American presidency will impact the rest of the world. While we have spoken about G7 nations, we've spoken about US as NATO allies as well. I want to bring your attention, I want you to tell us about the BRICS grouping. We had a summit a couple of weeks back. We have been talking about Russia-US relations right now. A few weeks ago, Karine Jean-Pierre, White House press secretary, said that it doesn't view the BRICS grouping as a geopolitical rival. Do you perhaps see a change in stance, positive or negative, for the grouping as regards the American policy?
I think that the BRICS is setting up slowly but surely alternative structures for global governance. It is not waging an all-out attack on the existing framework of international relations, and particularly financial relations. The BRICS summit, very importantly, did not take any action on de-dollarization. It did not take any step to rival SWIFT in international messaging of payments. It is going to place emphasis on its attractiveness to the world, to the South, to the developing nations, the emerging nations, through the use, the growth of the New Development Bank to finance investment, to finance infrastructure projects across the world. So it is not an immediate contest between BRICS and the IMF, BRICS, and the G7 structures. But over time, particularly by the concentration within BRICS members, both core members and associate partners, the concentration of hydrocarbon producers, oil and gas producers, and the move in trading away from petrodollars to national currencies for hydrocarbons, which are the single biggest, like oil in particular, the single biggest traded commodity, will necessarily result in de-dollarization, but in a non-conflictual way. So the future of BRICS as a governing board for the participating members in the governing board of global finance and global geopolitics is a reality that is shaping itself in front of us today. And India's position in that is secure as a key driver. Mr. Modi, Mr. Putin, and Mr. Xi are the single most influential leaders in the BRICS core. And that is of great importance with respect to the G7. I see from today's Financial Times that the EU representatives were saying we are not panicking by Mr. Trump's victory. But of course they are.
Doctor, let's talk about that victory. Let's talk about Trump, because in his victory speech, he did sound different. He was talking about reducing taxes. He was talking about bringing unity in America. He was talking about having a massive victory for democracy and freedom in America. Do you really think Trump has changed? And what are we going to see in his presidency come the next 4 years?
As I was saying, the most important change between Trump in 2016 and Trump in 2024 is that today he has a team of level-headed, sensible, and dedicated advisors and assistants. It's starting with the world's richest man, Elon Musk. The Musk factor in Mr. Trump's victory is enormous. He put at the disposal of Trump's electoral campaign not just his money and his own personal voice, but the global reach of his messaging service. This assistance was decisive in Trump's victory, and I think that people who are sensible and committed to order as opposed to chaos will be at his side this time, helping him to enabling him to perform the anti-war or the no-war policies that he has announced. But you mentioned his stress on domestic policy. Of course, that's understandable because he won the election on the basis of his perceived ability to manage the economy. This was clear that the economy and management of the economy was at least the second most important issue on voters' minds in the States when they went to the ballot box. The first was the future of American democracy. But foreign affairs were nowhere on the radar screen, not because they're unimportant, but because the American public does not view its presidential candidates from the perspective of foreign policy, only from domestic policy.
Doctor, do you see or do you foresee a difference this time round? Because Trump has been president for 4 years before. Now he's going to be president for another 4 years. This is his second chance at being the President of the United States, do you really think, or do you foresee some sort of change with his policies, for instance, with how he handles issues, with how he speaks to people, and with how he takes the leadership role?
There will be a difference because, as I said, this time he has control of the Senate. So he can get through the Senate people who will carry out his will. He did not have that possibility in his first presidency, and it was decisive in rendering his policies useless. Finally, his attempt to accommodate Russia failed simply because he did not have the proper people. His first presidency was a kind of family cabinet. You know very well that he invited in his immediate family to perform important advisory roles and even executive roles in his administration. And the reason was he had nobody else. He came to the presidency without a strong support team, people experienced in how government is run. He didn't have that in 2016. He has it today. He has dedicated senators who understand his policies and are willing and able to see them through the Senate, where foreign policy is made. He has individuals like Robert Kennedy Jr., who bring to his presidency great experience as implementers, not just as thinkers, but as implementers of a green policy. After all, Kennedy is the one who cleaned up the Hudson River in the United States. So in this particular case, he has a team. And without a team, you don't go very far in government, just as you don't go far in business.
Dr. Gilbert, you very rightly pointed out that this time around Donald Trump has the control of the Senate. Does that, however, also align with the reports that said Americans had voter anxiety looking at the outcome of the elections, thinking about the outcome of the election should Donald Trump come into the second term? And if you contrast and compare it to Americans voting for economy, and of course, Trump also saying that he's not a Nazi in his Georgia rally. So do you see, like Eric pointed out, do you see a renewed Donald Trump in 2.0? Or do you think that the view of the Americans who felt that they should be feeling anxious about this presidency somewhat holds some weight?
As I'm saying, the presidency is made not by one man, but by a team. It needs a leader, it's clear. And this was one of the big failures of the Harris campaign. People perceived that she would not be a leader, that she would be a puppet, and that some people, unseen, unelected, would be controlling her presidency. That is not the case with Donald Trump. I think the man's bravery has been proven to everyone in the States by his surviving 2 assassination attempts, in the first one of which he was wounded and still stood up, his fist in the air, saying, "We will proceed." This, I think, was what won him the support of many minority leaders who otherwise would vote Democratic. They saw a real man here, a person with courage. And that is not the Trump that anyone could understand, or very few people could understand in 2016. I'd like to emphasize that the notion of Mr. Trump as a fascist is as much a falsehood as the notion of Mr. Trump in 2016 being put in as a Manchurian candidate by the Russians. That was rubbish. It was a campaign ploy, a very damaging ploy that was sponsored by Hillary Clinton, just as the notion that Mr. Trump is a fascist or a Hitler supporter is absolute lie that is put up in this very dirty political campaign. Let's go beyond that. Mr. Trump has been influenced, of course, by his near-death experience. I think that may make him more humane than the Trump of 2016. And I would not worry for the future of freedoms in the States, because Trump himself has given voice to the non-standard thinkers in the States, or the whole array of alternative media in the States, of which I am a participant, I'm glad to say. This exists only because Mr. Trump himself said things in his campaign which would have put ordinary citizens into prison if the Democrats had their way about it. And since he was a candidate, they couldn't stop him. And that has given us all in the States more freedom than our peers in Europe have.
Dr. Gilbert, Dr. Rowe, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Always a pleasure speaking to you.
Very kind of you. Thank you.